Hello, God bless you. It's time for today's daily devotion. This is where we read a chapter from the Bible each day, 5 days a week. Today we're going to read Matthew chapter 23. My name is Stephen, and I'm from Graffiti Fellowship in Brooklyn, New York. We serve the Coney Island community in southern Brooklyn. And I'm reading, as is my habit, from the New Living Translation. A lot of great translations out there. We teach from the New Living Translation just because it's the easiest reading level for people to understand. Matthew 23 is 39 verses and just has two subsections. The first is Jesus criticizes the religious leaders, and that is a comparatively long one. That's almost the entire chapter. And then the last just couple of verses, 3 verses, are another subsection that says Jesus grieves over Jerusalem. Now, we've already seen Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem, and that continues. That period of time continues now with Matthew chapter 23. Verse 1 begins, "Then Jesus said to the crowds and his disciples, 'The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example. They don't practice what they teach. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Everything they do is for show. On their arms they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. They love to sit at the head table at banquets and in the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces and to be called Rabbi.'" Verse 8, "Don't let anyone call you Rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your spiritual Father. And don't let anyone call you Teacher, for you have only one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant. But those who exalt themselves," that means elevate themselves, lift themselves up, "will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others go in either. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Blind guides, what sorrow awaits you, for you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools, which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say that to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding. How blind! For which is more important, the gift on the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacred? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on the throne. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest amount from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides, you strain your water so you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you swallow a camel. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but on the inside filled with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly you look like righteous people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you build tombs for the prophets your ancestors killed, and you decorate the monuments of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. Then you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would have never joined them in killing the prophets. But in saying that, you testify against yourselves in that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started. Snakes, son of vipers, how will you escape the judgment of hell? Therefore, I'm sending you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law, but you will kill some by crucifixion, and you'll flog others with whips in your synagogues, chasing them from city to city. As a result, you'll be held responsible for the murder of all godly people of all time, from the murder of righteous Abel to the murder of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you killed in the temple between the sanctuary and the altar. I tell you the truth, this judgment will fall on this very generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers, how often have I wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. And now, look, your house is abandoned and desolate, for I tell you this, you'll never see me again until you say, blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Now, that's the end of Matthew chapter 23, and this particular chapter, I'll just speak kind of from a place of personal conviction. This chapter is one that I've read seemingly countless times over the past several weeks and months. And Jesus speaks very strongly here. And we see that phrase repeated over and over again. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites. Now, he's speaking to the religious leaders of the day. He's speaking to the people who lead the synagogue, who lead the temple. And in today's context, this would be extended to those that lead the church. And he speaks very specifically about, he says, let no man call you rabbi. And it's clear that he's not just talking about that Jewish term rabbi, which means teacher. Because he goes on to qualify and to clarify. He says, don't let anyone call you father. Don't let anyone call you teacher. I've been under great conviction by this passage, really for the past couple of years, and I've been studying it a lot in recent weeks and months, as I said. Because at our church, we're because of the conviction that I feel from Matthew 23, we are intentionally working to create a culture where leadership, listen, leaders must lead. Leaders have a job to do. And leaders cannot abdicate that responsibility. I, as a pastor of the church, I cannot give that responsibility away. I'm going to do my job, and my job is to lead the church. But my job is not to exalt myself. Jesus speaks very clearly about this here. And when it comes to people calling you by honorific titles, people very often call me Pastor or Pastor Stephen or something similar to that. And I understand where that's coming from. That's it's a sign of respect and endearment. But I want our culture and our church to be one where, yes, I am the pastor, and I'm gonna do that job, and I'm gonna do it as well as I possibly can because it's a job that God's given me, and it's an important job. But I'm just regular Stephen, who is a pastor. I've been on the wrong side of this issue a lot for a number of years, but I will never again introduce myself as Pastor Stephen or Pastor Trainer. And I've been a pastor for a long time, about 20 years in one capacity or another. I'm honestly, I'm well educated. I have many credentials. But Jesus teaches very specifically here that I'm not to place stock in those things. And we want our culture at our church to reflect that. And so I know it's a tradition in many churches to use titles and honorifics. Some people call my wife the first lady of the church, for example. And I know the history behind that, and I know the heart behind that. But Jesus speaks very clearly in this chapter about things like that, and we want our culture to best reflect the attitude of Jesus. And when we read this in Matthew chapter 23, I think Jesus' opinion, his feelings, his teaching on the subject is very clear. Leaders are the lead servants, and leaders are to humble themselves, not to exalt themselves, and not to allow culture that exalts them to run rampant and unchecked, because it's not healthy. It's not healthy for the leader, and at a certain point, it's not healthy for the church either. So, sorry for that longer commentary again on this particular chapter. I try to really just let the scripture speak for itself without offering a whole lot of kind of personal notes and commentary, but I do believe that it's helpful here in Matthew chapter 23 as we really seek to take Jesus's teaching to heart and allow that to shape our lives. Thanks so much for participating in this daily devotional chapter. See you next time for Matthew chapter 24. God bless.